Have you ever wondered how life in ancient Greece was like? Let's take a trip back in time, when the concepts of democracy and philosophy were budding, and the Olympics were just kicking off. Life was different, and some practices, which seem downright odd to us today, were just part of the daily grind. Picture a world where wearing nothing was not only acceptable but encouraged in athletic events. Or a social gathering, where throwing apple to a woman was considered a marriage proposal. Imagine a society where unibrows were the epitome of beauty and intelligence. Bizarre, right? Well, these oddities were just business as usual in ancient Greece. A place where the unusual was the norm, and the norm was, well, pretty unusual. So, buckle up, time travelers, and let's set our course to this fascinating era. As we delve into the past, prepare to immerse yourself in the peculiar norms of ancient Greece. Let's travel back to the early days of ancient Greece, a time of peculiar customs. Imagine a world where unwanted infants were not given up for adoption, but instead, were left on the hillsides exposed to the elements. This was the ancient Greek practice of exposure. Parents, particularly those from lower socioeconomic classes, who could not afford to raise a child, would abandon them in the wild. The hope was that a passerby might take the infant in. However, many were not so fortunate, falling prey to the harsh realities of nature. Transitioning from the somber, we delve into a ritual that might raise more than a few eyebrows today: pederasty. This was a social and educational institution in ancient Greece, where an older man known as the Erastes would take a younger boy, known as the Eromenos, under his wing. This relationship was not merely platonic. It involved companionship, affection, and in many cases, an intimate relationship. The Erastes was responsible for the Eromenos' moral and intellectual development. He would teach the young boy everything from ethics and politics to warfare tactics, thus preparing him for his future role in society. The Eromenos, in turn, would offer his mentor companionship and affection. This practice was seen as a rite of passage, an integral part of a young boy's journey into manhood. To our modern sensibilities, these customs might seem shocking, even abhorrent, but historical context is crucial. Ancient Greece was a vastly different society with different norms and values. These practices were not viewed as oddities, but as standard parts of life. In the lens of history, it's essential to remember that what seems normal is often a matter of perspective, heavily influenced by the cultural and historical context. What was considered normal in one era might be viewed as odd or even inhumane in another. These practices may seem strange to us, but were considered perfectly normal in early ancient Greece. As we venture further into the classic age of ancient Greece, the oddities continue. Let's begin with the Olympic Games, a tradition that dates back to the 8th century BC. You might be familiar with the modern version, but the ancient Olympics had its own unique quirks. Athletes competed naked with olive oil slathered over their bodies. Yes, you heard it right, no jerseys, no shorts, just bare skin and a slick layer of oil. This was the norm, not an exception. It was believed that the nudity honored the gods and promoted aesthetic appreciation of the male body. The oil, on the other hand, was used to regulate body temperature and keep the skin smooth. So, while we may find it a bit strange, for the Greeks, it was a display of physical prowess and reverence to the divine. Next, we step into the mystical world of the Oracle of Delphi, the most powerful woman in the classical world. The Oracle, or Pythia as she was known, was a woman chosen to serve as the mouthpiece of Apollo, the god of prophecy. People from all walks of life traveled to Delphi to seek her advice, from farmers worried about their crops to kings planning wars. But here's the catch. The Pythia didn't just sit and chat. She entered a trance-like state induced by chewing on laurel leaves or inhaling the vapors from a chasm beneath the temple. Her words, often cryptic and ambiguous, were then interpreted by priests. It was a spectacle, a blend of spirituality and theatrics that was accepted as a normal part of life. Greece in the classic age was a fascinating mix of the peculiar and the profound. The naked athletes of the Olympics and the trance-induced prophecies of the Oracle were not just oddities. They were reflections of a society that valued physical strength, spiritual connection, and divine guidance above all else. Intriguing, isn't it? How these odd norms were simply a part of everyday life in the classic age of ancient Greece. As we approach the end of the ancient Greek era, the oddities don't seem to fade. Let's delve into the latter part of this fascinating period where some peculiar practices persisted. One such practice was the use of white lead as makeup. In their quest for beauty, the Greeks went to extreme lengths, often with dire consequences. This white lead, known as cerussa, was used to achieve a pale, ethereal complexion, a beauty standard of the time. However, it was highly toxic, leading to various health problems and sometimes even death. Another enduring oddity was the ritual of sacrificing animals to the gods. This practice was deeply ingrained in the culture, believed to appease the deities and ensure prosperity. From goats to bulls, these sacrifices were an integral part of religious ceremonies, festivals, and rites of passage. Even as the ancient Greek era neared its end, the peculiarities of their culture remained. From the early to the late age of ancient Greece, we've uncovered some truly bizarre practices. Remember how we kicked things off with the birth of oddities? We learnt about the peculiar rituals of baby tossing and the commonality of open-air gyms. Then, we moved on to the early age oddities, where we dived into the eccentric realm of Spartan education and the unusual practice of ostracism. As we journeyed into the Classic Age, we discovered the strange spectacle of theater competitions and the fascinating concept of trial by water. Then, rounding up with the Late Age oddities, we explored the mystifying world of oracles and witnessed the peculiar sport of pancration. Each of these eras presented its own unique set of oddities, each more fascinating than the last. These peculiar norms of ancient Greece, although strange to us, paint a vivid picture of a fascinating and complex culture.